Hello and welcome to my video all about how to do the Kfb and Kfbf increases. Now I'm going to start with the Kfb, which stands for knit front and back, where front and back refer to the top stitch on the left hand needle. This is a single increase, which means it will increase the number of stitches on your needles by 1. All you need to know is how to do a knit stitch really. And the first thing you do is just knit up to the place where you want to do the increase. Here I'm doing stockinette stitch, so I'm alternating between knit rows and purl rows. I'm on a knit row at the moment, so the yarn is already at the back. You need the yarn at the back for this increase technique. So to do the Kfb, you go into the top stitch on the left hand needle and start to do a normal knit stitch. So you go into that top stitch and cross the needle behind, wrap the yarn around the back needle, and then just at the point where you're about to push the stitch off the left hand needle, you stop and instead you swing the right hand needle around to the back. You're then going to knit into the back of that top stitch. So if I just turn my needles over now, what you're going to do is take your right hand needle and push it down through that top stitch on the left hand needle. So now you're doing what's called knitting into the back of the loop. So then you just carry on as if this were a normal knit stitch and bring the right needle through to the front. But this time you complete the stitch, like so, by pushing the stitch off the top of the left hand needle. And that is a Kfb increase, and you can see here that you now have 2 stitches where you started with just 1, making it a single increase. And now I'm going to show you a Kfb again, so I'm going to do another couple of knit stitches and then go into that top stitch as if I'm going to knit it, but stop just short of pushing that stitch off the needle. Then I swing the right hand needle round to the back and go down through that stitch, i.e. through the back of the loop, and complete a knit stitch. And that is a Kfb. One thing to note about the Kfb and the Kfbf is that they are not invisible increases. Unlike the make one increase, which is almost invisible, the Kfb leaves a visible horizontal bar of yarn on the front of your work. This does stand out a mile if it's in the middle of, say, a large area of stockinette stitch. However, if you use a Kfb in a large area of garter stitch, it's not anywhere near as obvious. When you're looking at the right side, or the front, of your knitted project, that horizontal bar of yarn, or bump in the yarn, shows you where the increase has occurred. And this bump is always to the left of the original stitch. The original stitch being the one that you did the increase on. So that horizontal bar of yarn is always to the left of the original stitch. And that makes the Kfb a left-leaning increase. If you don't know what I mean when I say right-leaning or left-leaning, basically most increase and decrease techniques are either left-leaning or right-leaning. In order to get a professional finish on your knitted work, these right-leaning and left-leaning increases and decreases are paired up in such a way as to sort of balance each other out. As a beginner, you don't have to worry about this. It's just something to be aware of. When you're following a pattern, which you probably will be most of the time, if not all the time, then in the pattern it will tell you which increases and decreases to use and where. So all of this theory is just something to be aware of. So now I'm going to show you how to do a Kfbf. The first thing you need to do is knit up to the point where you want to do the increase. Then go into the top stitch with your right hand needle and begin a regular knit stitch. So you go into the stitch with your right hand needle, wrap the yarn around the back needle, and just at the point where you're about to push the stitch off the top of the left hand needle, you stop and you swing the right hand needle around to the back. Then you knit through the back of the loop. So to do this, you take your right hand needle down through that top stitch and then do the following stages of a normal knit stitch, again up until the point where you're about to push the stitch off the top of the needle. And at this point you stop, and unlike the Kfb which you complete at this point, you now do one more stitch, which is a knit stitch, into the front of the loop. So you take your right hand needle and you go up through the front of that top stitch. And this is just a regular knit stitch now to finish. So you go up through that front stitch, wrap the yarn around the back needle, and then complete the stitch. It can get a little tight at this point, so try to keep it nice and loose, especially if you're a tight knitter. And then once you've pushed that stitch off the needle, you now have 3 stitches on your right hand needle when you only started with 1 stitch on the left hand needle, therefore creating a double increase. I'll just do another knit stitch or 2 and show you the Kfbf one more time. So you do the first stages of a normal knit stitch, up to the point where you're going to push the stitch off the needle. Instead, you swing the right hand needle round to the back and knit into the back of the top stitch. So you go down through that top stitch and then once again continue with a normal knit stitch. But then when you reach the stage where you would normally push the stitch off, you then do a normal knit stitch to complete the Kfbf. And once again we have gone from 1 stitch to 3 stitches, therefore increasing the number of stitches by 2. And that concludes the video on the Kfb and the Kfbf decrease techniques. I hope it's been helpful and thank you very much for watching.